Module 8. In Module 8, we will see the regulatory requirements of US FDA, EMA, MHRA, TGA, and ROW countries. We will start with generic drug product registration requirements in the US. The United States has perhaps the world's most stringent standards for approving new drugs. Drug approval standards in the United States are considered by many to be the most demanding in the world. Let's see how. What is the registration process? So, to begin with, the CTD is mandatory for the submission of the drug applications like NDA or ANDA. US FDA guidances, FDA sections 505B and NDA and 505J for ANDA are followed for the preparation of the dossier for the drug approval applications. The applications are of different types. Like for new drug, it is NDA, new drug application. For generic drug, we file it as an ANDA, that is abbreviated new drug application. And for biological applications, it is BLA, biologics license application. And there is one more thing, that is investigational new drug application, that is IND. IND is an application filed to the FDA in order to start clinical trials in humans if the drug was found to be safe from the reports of preclinical trials. The company or the institution which is called as a sponsor is responsible for submitting the IND application. Coming to the NDA, if clinical studies confirm that the new drug is relatively safe and effective and will not pose unreasonable risks to the patients, the manufacturer files a NDA, that is new drug application, the actual request to manufacture and sell the drug in the United States. For generic drug, it is ANDA, abbreviated new drug application. It's an application made for approval of generic drugs. The sponsor is not required to reproduce the clinical studies that were done for the original brand name product. Instead of that, generic drug manufacturers must demonstrate that their product is same as that of the innovator drug product. And BLA is for biologics. The applicant himself or a GDEA, that is Generic Drug Enforcement Act, certified and approved agent may directly submit the application to the FDA. There are some specific requirements as per the section. So, coming to the administrative information, what all do we submit in this? We submit the cover letter, we submit Form 356H, application information, field copy certification, debarment certification, financial certification, patent information, and exclusivity. The paper size of the submission is letter size with font size 12 in Times New Roman format, and the tables and figures have small font size, that is 8 to 10. These are the standards which are required for registration in US. We do submit package inserts. Like package inserts are provided for drug product in the labeling. Then proposed labels and cartons with proper dimensions similar to that of the RLD, that is reference listed drugs labels, are provided. The information about the clinical investigators is provided in Module 5 and in Financial Disclosure Statement section of this module. Then, request for waiver of in vivo BE studies is provided in Module 1. Annotated draft labeling, that is side-by-side comparison for labels and cartons compared with the RLD with proper annotation, is provided. The Environment Assessment Statement, that is EAS for Categorical Exclusion Certificate, which is in compliance with the law of EPA, that is Environment Protection Act of US, is provided. We also submit risk management plan. The risk management plan section is for the post-marketing surveillance and controlling the adverse effects of the drugs by proper management. This is the part of clinical trial phase 4. The declaration is given for the residual solvent limits used or present in the drug substance and excipients according to the USP. Then information on components including the name and address of the supplier or manufacturer of the raw material, packaging material are provided in 3-2R format. Certificate of suitability, that is CP, it is not applicable for ANDAs or any submissions in US. It is not applicable. Comparability protocols are not attached to both the drug substance and the drug products. The stability data for accelerated studies are submitted for 3 months at the time of original submission. We submit 3 months accelerated stability study and 6 months of long-term study. We also submit structured product labeling, that is SPL, and study tagging file STF. Both are mandatory by the US FDA in ECTD of a drug registration application. This is the flowchart for review process of NDA, that is new drug application. The applicant or the drug sponsor submits the NDA. The application is filed. If it is fileable, then it goes to the CDER for review. If it is not fileable, then FDA issues a refuse to file letter. If it is fileable, then it goes for the review by different departments like medical, pharmacology, chemistry department, biopharmaceutical, statistical, microbiology. All these departments review the dossier. NDA, that is new drug application. Simultaneously, there are meetings with advisory committee and meetings with the sponsor. If the review is complete and not acceptable, then they will issue queries which we submit as an amendment to the agency. If the review is complete and the application is acceptable, then it goes to the labeling review. If labeling review is not acceptable, then they issue the deficiency letter to the sponsor. The sponsor revises its labeling and it again goes to the review. If simultaneously the sites where the product is manufactured goes for inspection, if it is acceptable after inspection, then the NDA takes action. If it is not, they give it as pending satisfactory results. So this is the flow chart of review process of NDA, that is new drug application. This flow chart is for ANDA review process. Let us go through this. If once the applicant files the ANDA and if it is not acceptable, they will receive refuse to file letter from the OGD or CDER. If it is acceptable, then it goes for review by the OGD or CDER, that is Office of Generic Drugs or the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. They have different departments like bioequivalence, plant inspection, then chemistry review, labeling review. All the teams review this ANDA accordingly. Then it further goes for, if the bioequivalence review is acceptable, then it will go for the inspection. If it is not acceptable, then we will receive bioequivalence deficiency. Accordingly, we will get, if it is not acceptable for CMC, we will receive the CMC deficiency or microbiology deficiency, or after labeling review, we may get labeling deficiencies. If after responding to the deficiencies, if everything is acceptable, then it goes for pre-approval inspection. If it is acceptable after inspection, then the ANDA is approved. If not, then approval deferred pending satisfactory results is applied. So this is all about the review process of an ANDA which is submitted to the US FDA. Let's see what is bioequivalence review process. The two main characteristics of a generic drug to be therapeutically equivalent to the innovator drug are to be pharmaceutical equivalent and also bioequivalent. Both the innovator and generic drug should be pharmaceutically equivalent. That is, they should have the same strength, dosage form, and same route of administration. This means the products are said to be bioequivalent when they have similar bioavailability when they are studied under same conditions. And the bioequivalence is determined by evaluation of the AUC, that is area under curve, and the maximum concentration of the drug, that is Cmax. What are the requirements for a generic drug product? See, a generic drug product is considered to be bioequivalent to the branded product if the 90% confidence interval, that is CI, of the mean area under curve and the relative mean Cmax is 80% to 125%. So this is the basic requirement. What is labeling review process? The labeling review process is to ensure that both the innovator and the generic drug have the same labeling. After the final level administrative review and individual disciplines have resolved their deficiencies, the application will either receive a full approval or a tentative approval letter. This we have seen in the flowchart in the earlier slides. A full approval letter details the conditions of approval and allows the applicant to market the generic drug product. A tentative approval letter is issued if there are unexpired patents or exclusivities accorded to the reference listed drug, that is RLD. So this was all about the registration process in US. Now we know that the United States has the most stringent regulation for generic drug filing in the world. The regulatory authorities should ensure that the pharmaceutical companies comply with the FDA regulations and guidelines. There are regulations and guidelines that help in drug development, manufacture, and safety testing so that they are safe and efficient and do not harm the patient's well-being. We have CTD templates for filing. The CTD provides a globally harmonized format that is accepted in many regions, avoiding the need to compile different registration dossiers for different regulatory authorities. So we have a common format also available with us. The primary purpose of the rules governing medicinal products in the US is to check whether drugs are manufactured in accordance with the guidelines so that they are safe and patients' well-being is protected. Countries have different standards. There are high registration costs and long timelines for registration of generic drugs. This may account for the good market share of generics in the USA. This was whole about the registration process in US. Now, what about the generic drug registration in Europe? Let's have a look. Similar to the US requirements, there are two regulatory steps to go through before a drug is approved to be marketed in the European Union. These two steps are clinical trial application and marketing authorization application. The European Medicines Agency EMEA is a decentralized body of the European Union with headquarters in London. In Europe, the drugs are marketed only after the marketing authorization approval. The clinical trial applications are approved at the member state level, whereas the marketing authorization applications are approved at both the member state and the centralized levels. European generic medicines are approved through four marketing authorization procedures, namely centralized procedure, national procedure, mutual recognition procedure, and decentralized procedure. Coming to the drug approval process in Europe, there are two regulatory steps to go through before a drug is approved to be marketed in the European Union. That is clinical trial application and the second is marketing authorization application. There are 28 member states in the European Union. Clinical trial applications are approved at the member state level, whereas the marketing authorization applications are approved at both the member state and at the centralized levels. We know that European generic medicines are approved through four marketing authorization procedures. Let's start with centralized procedure. What is centralized procedure? The centralized procedure is one which allows applicants to obtain a marketing authorization that is valid throughout the EU. Results in a single authorization valid in European Union, Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. The centralized procedure application is evaluated by an assigned rapporteur and the timeline is EMA opinion is issued within 210 days and submitted to European Commission for final approval. Centralized procedure is compulsory for those medicines which are derived from any biotechnological processes such as genetic engineering. It is compulsory for those medicines which are intended for the treatment of cancer, HIV or AIDS, diabetes, neurodegenerative disorders or autoimmune diseases and other immune dysfunctions. Medicines officially designated orphan medicines. It is compulsory for orphan medicines also. This is the flowchart of centralized procedure. When the applicant submits this marketing authorization application, day 1 is the start of procedure. Assessment report form from co-rapporteur day 70. Then CHMP provides its comments on day 115. CHMP forwards this to the applicant list of questions. It is day 120 and this is also known as stop clock. Then it goes for submission of response by the applicant. We have to submit it day 121 starts. Then joint assessment report from co-rapporteur, it is day 150. Goes for the comments by CHMP, day 170. CHMP decision on need of oral explanation by applicant on day 180. Oral explanation by applicant day 181. It is restart clock. And after this, final draft of English SPC leaflet and labeling by applicant to co-rapporteur EMEA CHMP has to be submitted on day 185. Within 5 days, we have to submit this. And then CHMP issues its opinion by day 210. So, this is the procedure for centralized submission process. Next procedure is mutual recognition procedure. The mutual recognition procedure allows applicants to obtain a marketing authorization in the concerned member state, that is CMS, other than the reference member state, that is RMS, where the drug is previously approved. Applicant submits identical dossier to all the EU member states in which they want marketing authorization, including required information. As soon as one member state decides to evaluate the medicinal product, at which point it becomes the reference member state, that is RMS, it notifies this decision to the other member state, which then becomes the concerned member state to whom the applications have also been submitted. The reference member states issues a report to other states on its own findings. And generic industry is the major user of this type of drug approval procedure. This process may consume a time period of 390 days. In centralized procedure, we have seen that the time period was 210 days, and in this procedure it is 390 days. This is the flowchart for mutual recognition process. Let's have a look. Applicant files the application to the reference member state and the concerned member state. Then the reference member state validates the application. It is 90 days. Then the reference member state distributes assessment reports to the concerned member state. Then concerned member state validates the application. It again takes 90 days. Then the concerned member state approves the assessment report. And finally, the marketing authorization in each of the CMS is granted. This is all about the mutual recognition procedure. The third one is nationalized procedure. The nationalized procedure is one which allows applicants to obtain a marketing authorization in one member state only. In order to obtain a national marketing authorization, an application must be submitted to the competent authority of the member state. New active substances which are not mandatory under centralized procedure can obtain marketing authorization under this procedure. And timeline for this procedure is again 210 days, same as that of the centralized procedure. And for mutual recognition procedure, it was 390 days. The fourth procedure is decentralized procedure. Using this procedure, companies may apply for authorization simultaneously in more than one EU country for products that have not yet been authorized in any EU country and essentially do not fall within the centralized procedures essential drug list. Based on the assessment report which is prepared by the reference member state and any comments made by the concerned member states, this marketing authorization should be granted in accordance with the decision taken by the reference member state and concerned member state in this decentralized procedure. Generally used for those products that has not yet received any authorization in any EU country. And the timeline for this procedure is again 210 days, same as that of centralized procedure and nationalized procedure. It is also 210 days for decentralized procedure. Only for mutual recognition procedure it is 390 days. Coming to the flowchart of decentralized procedure, let's have a look. The applicant submits application to the reference member state and the concerned member state. Then both of them validates the application on the 70th day. Then the reference member state distributes the preliminary assessment report to the concerned member state. It again take 35 days and RMS sends preliminary assessment report and all comments of the concerned member state to the applicant. Then there is a clock stop, applicant responds and clock runs. The duration is 15 days for this. Then the reference member state sends draft assessment report to the concerned member state and applicant. After this, the concerned member state approves the assessment report. The duration required is 90 days or less. And finally, the CMS approve the assessment report and then marketing authorization in reference member state and each of the concerned member state is granted. This is whole about the decentralized procedure. Till now we have seen the procedures of US and Europe. Now coming to United Kingdom. The MHRA is the regulatory authority in UK, that is Medicines and Health Products Regulatory Agency. License for sale of drugs. What are the procedures for that? It is same as that of the Europe, that is national procedure, centralized procedure, decentralized procedure and mutual recognition procedure. We have already studied all these procedures under the module subsection of Europe. Let's see what are the major points in this. A DCP submission date should be booked if applicant wish applies for the reference member state. The reply from MHRA is obtained within 24 hours after confirming of booking. The product license, that is PL number and the DCP number, will be issued along with the reply which is received from the MHRA. We know that all the four procedures which we have seen under Europe are common for UK. Let's go one by one. National procedure. This procedure is used when the drug has to be marketed only in the UK. And the application process takes about 210 days. Then coming to the centralized procedure, it is required when the drug manufactured is to be marketed throughout Europe. Decentralized procedure is needed if the drug has to be manufactured and marketed in the UK and other European countries. The DCP submission date should be booked if the applicant wish applies for the RMS. The reply from the MHRA is obtained within 24 hours. This we have just seen in the previous slide. Here MHRA acts as a reference member state to the another member state that applicant has planned to apply a CMS. It takes up to 210 days for the procedure, excluding the time taken for submission of further data and information. If the application is approved, then the MHRA and the CMS will issue a national license for the product to be marketed within 30 days of the approval granted. Coming to the mutual recognition procedure, if the drug already has a marketing license in the least one or more European countries but wanted to market the drug in any other countries, this license is applied. The MHRA verify whether the item can be acknowledged for the mutual recognition procedure and then it issues the MRP number, that is mutual recognition procedure number, which is to be utilized as a part of the application. After the issue, the MHRA acts as a reference member state and will lead the assessment of the application. The processing time for this application from here, it takes 90 days. And if the application is approved, then the national license will be issued within 30 days of the 30 days by the concerned member state. And mutual recognition procedure can be used more than one time. This is called as repeat use procedure. Keep it in mind that mutual recognition procedure can be used more than one time, which is called as repeat use procedure. Now let's see about the procedure in Australia. The Therapeutic Goods Administration, that is TGA, is a division of Australian Government Department of Health and Aging and is responsible for regulating therapeutic goods including medicines, medical devices, blood and blood products. Therapeutic goods are evaluated by TGA before they are marketed. Monitoring of the product once they are in the market is also done by TGA. It also looks into the suitability of medicines and medical devices for export from Australia. Therapeutic goods manufacturing unit is also regulated by TGA to ensure they meet acceptable standards of manufacturing quality. A team of manufacturing inspectors that audit manufacturing facilities around the world to ensure that products supplied in Australia are of high quality. Coming to the types of applications which are submitted to TGA for registration of medicines are divided into three types: Category 1 application, Category 2 application and Category 3 applications. Let's see what is Category 1 application. These are applications submitted for new medicine, new dosage form, new strength and new generics, extensions to indications and changes to product information, that is PI, also constitute Category 1 application. What is Category 2 application? These applications are the application to register a prescription medicine with the same formulation, dosage and indication as in two acceptable countries and for which two independent evaluation reports are available. Let's see what is Category 3 application. These are applications which are submitted when the change is made to the quality information of registered medicines or medicines included in ARTG, which may or may not render medicines separate and distinct. This application does not require the support of clinical, preclinical or bioequivalence data. The quality of changes subject to the Category 3 application can be the specification from active ingredient or finished products, the method of manufacture of active ingredient, the manufacturing procedure for finished product, if there are changes in the site of manufacture of active ingredient or there are changes in the site of manufacture of finished product, if there are any changes of shelf life or storage or labeling, then it will fall under Category 3 application. Let us see category wise application process. Category 1 applications. These are applications submitted to register a new medicine, new dosage form, new strengths and new generic drug products. After submission of application, it will take 40 working day period for TGA to take decision whether to accept or reject the application. After the acceptance of application, 255 working days is required by TGA to completely evaluate the application. Category 2 applications. These are applications which are submitted to register generic drug products which are already accepted in other regulated countries such as USA, Canada, Europe, etc. At the time of submission, two independent evaluation reports where the drug product is accepted for marketing has to be submitted. TGA will take 20 working days period to take decision whether to accept or reject the application. And after the acceptance of application, 175 working days is required by TGA to completely evaluate the application. Coming to category 3 application, these are applications which are submitted to bring a post-approval change to quality data of registered medicine. These applications has single processing period. TGA will take 40 working day period to accept or reject the change, and after the decision, extra 30 working days is given to sponsor for consideration of decision, that is accept or rejection of the change. Now coming to the streamlined submission process. What is this? TGA has introduced new submission process, that is streamlined submission process, to register the prescription medicines that require evaluation of quality, clinical and non-clinical data, that is category 1 and category 2 applications. These new submission process This new submission process was brought into force in order to improve significantly efficacy and timelines of registration of prescription medicines without compromising the scientific data of evaluation process and maintaining the appropriate standards of quality, safety and efficacy. So this has been newly introduced by TGA, that is streamlined submission process. It's India. Let's see what is the process we follow it in India. When a company in India wants to manufacture or import a new drug, it has to apply to seek permission from the licensing authority DCGI by filing in Form 44, also submitting the data as given in Schedule Y. Schedule Y of Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940 and Rules 1945. In order to prove its efficacy and safety in Indian population, it has to conduct clinical trials in accordance with the guidelines which are specified in Schedule Y, and it has to submit the report of such clinical trials in specified formats. What is NDA? New Drug Application. New drug application is an application which is submitted to the FDA for permission to market a new drug. To obtain this permission, a sponsor submits preclinical and clinical test data to NDA for analyzing the drug information, description of manufacturing procedures. After NDA received by the agency, it undergoes a technical screening. This evaluation ensures that the sufficient data and information have been submitted in each area to justify filing the application, that is FDA formal review. At the conclusion of FDA review of an NDA, there are three possible actions that can send to sponsor. First is not approvable, approvable or approval. Not approvable, in this letter list of deficiencies and explain the reason. Approvable, it means that the drug can be approved but minor deficiencies that can be corrected, like labeling changes and possible request commitment to do post-approval studies. Approval, it states that the drug is approved. If the action taken is either an approvable or a not approvable, then FDA provides applicant with an opportunity to meet with the agency and discuss the deficiencies. This is the flow chart of drug approval process in India. The applicant goes with the IND application filing to the CDSO headquarters. Simultaneously, application goes to the ethical committee. After IND application filing, it goes for examination by the new drug division. Detailed review is done by the IND committee. Then recommendation to DCGI. Then IND application is approved. Then we start the clinical trial. Meanwhile, on the other side, when the application goes to the ethical committee prepares a report, and if it is positive, within 12 weeks, we can start clinical trials. After clinical trials, application of new drug registration goes to the CDSO. Then it is reviewed by the DCGI. If it is complete, then license is granted. If it is not complete, then it is refused to grant license. This is all about the drug approval process in India. In this module, we have seen about the registration and approval process in different countries. Now, what's next? Let's see and let's go for the next module. Best of luck.